Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the match reaction. Of course this live stream is incredibly late, as I'm sure some of you will have known. As I mentioned in the preview to this game, I was actually in Amsterdam over the last couple of days or so the last 24 hours has been a little bit just rushed because obviously I've been, getting everything together to sort of get home. I've literally just arrived home about 15 minutes ago, so I'm straight into this. I watched the match last night out in Amsterdam. Obviously, I wouldn't miss the Merseyside derby for the world, despite the fact that I absolutely hate these games of football. And I hate these games of football largely because of all of the reasons that we saw yesterday. Yesterday was a game of football between two sides that were in a little bit of a poor run of form, shall we say, to say the least. Certainly Liverpool's case, they were in a bit of a sticky patch. A lot of pressure on them and their expectation, considering how far down they've dropped in the table, and of course the pressure on Everton's end coming from the second consecutive relegation battle, another change of manager, and just overall a Merseyside derby that felt a lot more important than ones in the past have felt. And typically whenever we get a situation like that, there's only ever one real outcome, and that's one team really wants to win and actively tries to do everything they can to win, and the other team turns up and just doesn't really have any bark, doesn't really have any bite, doesn't really have any grit or determination or desire about them. Typically the end result is always the same, and that was exactly what it was last night. Liverpool 2, Everton in the Merseyside derby. Of course, as I said, this is the instant match reaction. It's not instant, but it's the instant match reaction. We'll be doing a player rating straight after this video as well, and then of course the game review will be tomorrow. But yeah, I was really, really, really disappointed. Really, really, really disappointed last night. And don't get me wrong, I'm not massively concerned, and I'm not sitting here and massively upset or fuming or whatever, because I understand that when Sean Dyche was given the job, we all sat here and said, right, these two games, Arsenal and Liverpool, are games that we're very unlikely to get anything out of. So if we get past these, then we can start to look forward towards the likes of Leeds and teams like that are very, very winnable games, and games Everton should be looking to pick up 3 points in. And of course, when we beat Arsenal last week, that was all thrown in the air a little bit, because all of a sudden we'd beaten the team that were top of the table, and we'd also been able to sit back and go, well, hang on, actually Liverpool are in really bad form at the moment. They're not playing particularly well. And I tried to say this on the instant match reaction, and I actually got a few comments saying, oh, you're being too nice to them, why are you licking up to Red? I wasn't at all. What I was actually saying on the instant match, on the game preview, which actually ended up coming true, was they're not that bad at home. Away from home, they've been horrendous, but at home, typically, they've done okay. Not to their standard, but they're not an awful team at home by any sense of the imagination. But apparently I was, that wasn't a sensible thing to say. Apparently that was just being up their arses, some people said in the comments, whatever it was. But the reality was, they've been all right at home in recent times, and it was always going to be a task yesterday. But I was just really, really, really disappointed with the performance. As I said, I'm fully aware that the situation means that it's not the biggest game of football that we've got to play this season, and certainly the game on Saturday feels much more important. Certainly it does now in terms of winning. So I get that we can sort of file this one in the locker of Merseyside derby defeats that we can forget about and not really ever think about again. And this is definitely one of them that in 2 or 3 years I'll have forgotten the score of this game and the result and everything like that. But that doesn't mean I can't be disappointed, and I was really, really disappointed with the way Everton handled themselves last night, the way Everton portrayed themselves. I just think it was a real missed opportunity. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and have a massive go at the manager, because A, it's only his second game, B, his second game in charge of the football club was a Merseyside derby at Anfield, a fixture that only one Everton manager in the last however many years, 13, 14 years has managed to win. So I'm not really going to sit here and have a massive go at the manager, but I just think the players bottled it last night, and I don't really think there's much other way of putting it. We can sit here all we like and talk about the intricacies and this, that, and the other, and the occasion and it being an Anfield and this, that, and the other. But what it was one team that were up for it and were wanting to fight and were wanting to prove a point and were wanting to get themselves back on track a little bit with a performance. And the other was a team that didn't look like they wanted to be there, looked scared, looked terrified, looked a shell of what they looked last week against Arsenal when they turned up and threw absolutely everything at Arsenal. And I don't think this was a particularly good Liverpool performance yesterday either. I don't think Liverpool were anything special whatsoever. They scored 2 goals on the counter-attack, one which is awful defending by both fullbacks, and then Jordan Pickford makes a bit of a harsh decision. Again, I don't think it was as bad as maybe some people were making out, but I still think he could have handled himself a little bit better. And a second one, again, both fullbacks get caught. For me, and I don't want to spoil the player ratings because obviously we'll go on to them next, but for me, Seamus Coleman and Vitaly Mykolenko simply can't play fullback for Everton at the moment. They simply cannot do it. The pair of them yesterday were horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. The both of them. Mykolenko was awful, and don't get me wrong, Seamus wasn't much better. And I'm not just saying that to stick up for Seamus Coleman because he's been here for years. Seamus was absolutely woeful as well. Absolutely woeful. The pair of them cannot play fullback now. The manager's got to make a difficult decision. He's either got to put Nathan Patterson back in there, of course, depending on his fitness and where he's up to, and left back for me has to be Ben Godfrey now. If it's not going to be Ruben Vinagre and you're not going to give him the opportunity, it's got to be Ben Godfrey. Vitaly Mykolenko needs taken out of that team. He's absolutely horrendous at the moment. I thought he was maybe turning a little bit of a corner after the performance against Arsenal and, maybe getting a little bit of confidence back up and feeling, feeling his football a little bit more, but he was back to what he's been for the last 2 or 3 months yesterday, and that was just absolutely horrendous. But I just expected more. As I said, it wasn't a great Liverpool performance. They scored 2 goals on the counter attack. They never really had anything else. They never really had any other opportunities. But because we allowed them to have all of the ball, because we allowed them to have all of the time in the world that they wanted, because we allowed them to control the game, because we allowed them to get angry and to get a little bit bitey and to make it a little bit of a physical scrap, we didn't want to be involved in that. And I thought that would have suited us to the ground. If you'd have asked me before the game, Cam, what's your prediction for this game? I wouldn't have given you a score prediction. What I would have predicted was somebody to be sent off, because I would have thought that because both teams are in relatively difficult run of form at the moment, to say the least, because both teams have been poor, because both fan bases are a little bit riled up, obviously for very different reasons. Theirs because they're entitled and they believe that they deserve, everything should be given to them on a plate. Ours because our club is run by utter clowns. But you would have thought that all of those ingredients would have mixed together to make a real feisty, battling, real sort of old school Merseyside derby. And I think it could have been like that if those players would have been up for it. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't put any blame on the manager yesterday. Any blame. I think starting Ellis Sims was a mistake, but it was a mistake that Sean Dyche almost had to make, because now, for me, whereas 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had the conversations of what about Ellis Sims, what about Ellis Sims, what about Ellis Sims, what about throwing Ellis Sims in, and had he have started Neil Maupay yesterday and Sims had stayed on the bench, and the same outcome would have happened. With a lot of Blues would have been sitting there going, well, why didn't you put Sims on? He's more like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's more Dom's size and shape and style than Maupay is, and that would be absolutely right. So as soon as Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we knew Dom was unavailable yesterday, the shouts for Sims were flying out, and people seem to be generally not too fussed about him being in the starting 11. I think what we seen yesterday is that Ellis Sims is nowhere near at the level of a Premier League footballer at the moment, and that's not me saying he never will be there, and that's not me slating him and having a go at him, but I can understand and I can be aware of the situation that a player is in, and I don't think we can just sit here and go, oh, you can't have a go at Sims, he's a kid, and this, that, and the other, and it doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. No, it does. What it means is he's nowhere near the level of being a Premier League footballer. Doesn't mean he never will be. Doesn't mean it was completely his fault for the defeat. Doesn't mean that he was the worst player on the pitch in an Everton shirt, because he wasn't. Because as I said, Vitaly Mykolenko was absolutely horrendous. However, he is nowhere near the level of being a Premier League footballer. And what we found out yesterday, and the reason I said it's a mistake that Sean Dyche almost had to make, is because what we found out yesterday, which is what we already deep down knew, but again, maybe there was a bit of a, but what if Ellis Sims is just unbelievable and is like Lionel Messi? Well, now that we've figured out that that's not the case, we now know 100% for certain that without Dominic Calvert-Lewin in this team, we are bollocksed. And we knew this in the January transfer window, but we didn't make any signings. We farsed about. We completely and utterly sabotaged ourselves, and we were left with the, well, Ellis might be good enough. What if Ellis can drag us out of the situation? And again, I'm not saying that Ellis Sims should never play another Premier League minute for Everton this season, because, being thrown in at the deep end in a Merseyside derby at Anfield is incredibly difficult. And, I'm not saying that because of that performance alone we should never see him anywhere near the first team, but it was just the basics, the holding the ball up, the movement, the keeping it to himself. He couldn't do any of it last night, and I don't really care that he's a young lad, and I appreciate that there's ways of giving criticism, and I agree. This doesn't mean that his career's over and he's awful and he's nowhere near good enough, and he never will be, because he's still only a young lad. But I also don't agree with people who say you can't say a bad word about him because he's only a kid. No, I can. He was really, really poor last night, and he didn't do what we needed him to do. That's the matter of the fact. That's the matter of the fact as to what we all witnessed last night. And it was once again evidently shown that without a real centre forward, we are really, 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 really in a bad position, and our sort of out and out forward that the system is suited around and that the players seem to be suited around is made of Lego at the moment for one reason or another and can't stay fit, and we never thought to go out and buy another one in the January transfer window. So, yeah, as I said, for me, a really, 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 really disappointing performance, to be honest with you, because, as I said, they were there to be got at. At the start of the game, before the game, if you'd have said to us, right, how do you feel about this derby? How do you feel about, ultimately the outcome of it and what could be the outcome or whatever? I'd have said, we can get at these, we can get at them, and okay, we mightn't come away with a win, and we mightn't even come away with a point, but if we get at them, we make it physical, we make it tough, we battle with them, then these will, we'll give them a difficult afternoon. But we didn't. All we did is sit back, allow them to play their game. And it's the same with any team, whether it be Liverpool at Anfield, whether it be Southampton and St Mary's. It doesn't matter. If you sit back and you say to a team within the opening 5-10 minutes of a game, we don't really want to get involved here, so we're just going to sit back, let you have the ball, and we'll just watch you do what you need to do, then teams are going to go, well, these aren't really involved. These don't really want to go. These don't really want to have a go. So we're just going to control the game, and we'll just keep having shots, and we'll keep having chances at goal, and we'll keep getting at them. And at one point, they'll break. And that's what Everton did yesterday. They broke. The players looked the shell of themselves. And as I said, for me yesterday, it was a complete and utter display of a set of players who had no belief in themselves. No belief in themselves that they could go to Anfield and they could get something. It's as simple as that. Nothing to do with the manager. The manager's been here for 20 minutes, so I don't think tactically he got anything massively wrong. Maybe maybe his tactic was sit back and play it around. I don't know. But it just really looked to me like the players had let him down yesterday, and the players had let us down again. Another Merseyside derby in Anfield where we've been let down. As I said, the goals we conceded were atrocious. I don't even want to go back and watch them again. The defending is abysmal. Connor Cody, for the second one, I think it is, he's in absolutely no man's land. Both fullbacks, as I said, have embarrassed themselves there. Embarrassed them. And the pair of them, I don't care if it means Holgate at right back and Godfrey at left back, the pair of them need ragging out for 2 or 3 weeks and told, listen, you're nowhere near where you need to be playing in the Premier League at the moment. And yeah, we end up losing the game. As I said, not the most memorable Merseyside derby, but a disappointing one for me. I've watched Everton go to Anfield and get sonked 4 or 5-0, and I've sat here and gone, listen, we're just nowhere near as good as they are. It's horrible. I hate it. It's always going to be horrible, but let's move on. Yesterday wasn't that. Yesterday wasn't that. Yesterday was much more frustrating than that, because Liverpool aren't very good at the moment, and Liverpool weren't very good yesterday, and we made it easy for them. We didn't make anything difficult for them in that game whatsoever. We didn't make anything difficult. And when you make it easy for the team that, okay, mightn't be in a good run of form, but have still got quality in there to hurt you, then you will lose the game. And I just think we could have done a lot more. I think we could have done a lot more to to try and change the outcome of the game. And some of that does fall on the manager, of course. Listen, if I was Sean Dyche, I'd have took Ellis Sims off at half-time. Corney says, thanks for visiting Amsterdam. Corney, I completely, when I was there, I'm not going to go into the details, but I forgot to message you. I'm sure if you know, you know. But I apologise, mate. I'm coming back in the summer, so I'll message you and we'll meet up then. But yeah, it was disappointing. It was frustrating, it was annoying, and we'll now have to listen to them lot for the next 5 days or whatever it may be, 4 days, you know, jumping around and talking about how great they are and how they're back and all of that sort of stuff. But for Everton, ultimately, it's on to Saturday, 3 o'clock, Leeds at Goodison, a game that Everton simply must win. Another relegation 6-pointer. This game, for me, has got much more significance and seems much more important. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying yesterday wasn't. Yesterday was important and we needed to get something out of it, really, to keep the momentum going. But ultimately, Saturday's got to be a win. 3 points. If it's not 3 points on Saturday, then it's there's a problem. It's as simple as that. But anyway, look, we're going to leave it there. We will be back at the play ratings in just a minute, so don't forget to join us for them. But yeah, a disappointing performance, another disappointing derby result. I suppose we now just move on. And as I said, for me, listen, if you were to say to me now, Cam, you'll feel like this today, but on Saturday afternoon you'll be absolutely buzzing, because you'll have beaten Leeds. Then I'll take that. But look, we are going to leave it there. We will be back with the play rating shortly, so don't forget to look out for those. Big thank you all for watching. If you have watched and you have enjoyed, please do leave a like. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That will only take a second. But big thanks for watching. We'll see you later.